You could become heartbroken because of a figurine of someone who you have curated and taken the time to create in your head.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and welcome back to Making Space. Not just a podcast, but a place for honest, open conversations about where people have been and who they're becoming. So, if you've been listening to the podcast since season 1, you know relationships have come up a few times. These days, I feel like I can't go anywhere without the topic of dating coming up. So, I thought it was only right to have an episode dedicated to it. There's so much we could talk about, but I decided to focus on the things I found myself reflecting on lately. Ultimately, how to date without losing your mind. For this episode, my partner in crime is my friend Jordyn. I met Jordyn a little over a year ago, but we really got to know each other during a worship team retreat and bonded over our love-hate relationship with cooking. More on that later. Somehow, she's even more sassy than me, so we're usually bickering, but when we're not, we're having good conversations like the one you're about to hear. It's honestly such a blessing to have a friend in a similar season of life as you, and I've definitely seen the value of that in our friendship. Jordyn and I are definitely not experts on dating, we just have thoughts and wanted to share them. And I think there's a lot of value in learning from the experiences of others. So let's get into it. So what is something you have learned or that you're currently learning that you wish your younger self could have known?
I would say right now, I've been thinking a lot about my tendency to rush life and like really anticipate the future.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, I was so intrigued by the future and like knowing what was going to come in the future and like praying about it, like, God, what's going to happen? Like, am I going to be doing this? Am I going to be doing that? And I also think that I was motivated so much by fear of the unknown that dictated a lot of my actions and a lot of my decisions. And just recently I was reading Mark 5 specifically, and it made me realize that Jesus like never really lived a hurried life. He took things in stride and took his time with things. And specifically in Mark 5, it talks about how this man, he's a synagogue leader, comes up to God, Jesus, and he says, Jesus, my daughter is sick and like she's on the verge of death. I need you to come and heal her. And mind you, Jesus in a crowd of a bunch of people. And so Jesus goes along with him. But as he's journeying on this path to where his daughter is, there's a woman with the issue of blood in the midst of this crowd that touches the hem of Jesus's garment. And Jesus is in the crowd and tells his disciples, who just touched me? Like, and his disciples are like, there's so many people around you. Like, obviously someone touched you. But he's like, no, someone touched me. Like, power has left his clothes. And he takes the time and actually talks to the woman and speaks life into her and says, go in peace and be healed. And right after he says all this, he's still talking, and someone comes up to him and says, or he comes up to Jairus and says that his daughter is dead. I'm thinking, it doesn't even really say in the Bible what Jairus' response explicitly is when that happens. But I can only imagine myself being like, I came up to you like 20 minutes ago. We could have already been at the house, but you stopped. Yeah. You took the time to entertain someone else. And I'm telling you, my daughter is dying. Yeah. But Jesus, he was not like moved to help Jairus immediately. He took the time and understood that, okay, yeah, I see your need, but I also see the need of someone else. And I think that scripture really helped me to put into perspective that even though I want something now, even though I've been praying for something for a long time, even though I don't see it right now, doesn't mean that it's coming too late. Because at the end of the story, Jesus goes to Jairus' home and he ends up healing and raising her back to life. Yeah. His daughter. So Jairus got what he wanted, but it came seemingly too late, right? Like his daughter literally passed away. Yeah. But Jesus was like, she's sleeping. don't even worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
don't, just pay attention and believe. And I think that's what I've been trying to remember, is that God is the author of time. He created time. And although we have timelines or the things that we hope that's going to happen within a certain time frame, I don't have to worry about that. Time doesn't have to work against me. I can work with time and not see it as the enemy of my life. I'm not running out of it.
Yeah, that is so good. It's so interesting because literally yesterday, I wasn't even expecting to start here, but I love that this was your response, because I think it's something that we all struggle with. Literally, like, everyone is always struggling to live in the present. Maybe for some people it comes easy. I don't know who. If you are that person, please share your wisdom with the rest of the class. But it's just a struggle that we all have. And literally yesterday, I was reading Psalm 139, and I read this so many times, but for some reason, like, for the first time, I noticed verse 16, which says, "You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed." So it was just like, dang, every single moment of my life is already known. God already knows exactly how everything is going to go. And so what you're saying reminded me of that, because it's like, with all these things we're anticipating for the future, all the unknowns that we're worried about that are stressing us out, it's like, they're already written. Like, if they're already written, then why would I worry?
It's because you don't know it.
Yeah.
That's why you worry. But I think also worry indicates a lack of trust. And that is what I'm continuously having to remember.
Yeah.
Is that I can trust God because he's already written it out.
Yeah. So what things in the future have you always been stressing about, or like always been thinking about?
I mean, it could be literally anything. Career, health, marriage, dating, anything. I don't know. I think I was more confident in what my future would look like concerning my career and education, because I felt like I had control over those things more than like dating, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe it's just like deceptive thinking, but it was always a lot easier for me to be okay with not knowing exactly like where I would go to college, even though I like really knew deep down where I wanted to go to school. And I really believed that that was something that God had placed on my heart to pursue, the specific school that I went to. And even for the career that I pursued, I didn't even know exactly where I would land, but I just knew that it wasn't something to worry about, that I would eventually find my way. I wish I had that mindset when it came to dating and relationships.
Interesting.
But it's a lot harder for me to think that way.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why.
I think it's because it's like entirely out of your control. Not really. There are things you can you can do. Like, that's the whole point of dating, is to like get there. But in other ways, it just feels like such a chance thing. Just like where you're born and who your family is. It just like, I don't know. In my head, it's just like, oh, it just happens to you, which maybe is not true, but that's funny. So you're 25.
Thank you for telling.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry to reveal.
No, I'm not ashamed.
Ashamed, girl.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's kind of early to be ashamed, but anyways. No, what I'm saying that because I feel like you always hear people are like, when they were a kid, they're like, oh, when I turn 25, I'm going to be this, this, and that. I'm going to have this, this, and that. Which personally, I was not that child.
I was.
I'm like trying to like, did I even?
Definitely did.
I did not have any thoughts about my 20s. I was like, that's
really.
I didn't have any idea what my life would be like. But I think a lot of people do. So it's like, for you, especially when it comes to dating, do you feel like you are where you thought you would be? Or were you like already planning to be married or something crazy?
I was not planning to be married until age 27, 28.
Okay.
So I'm still on time.
Okay.
Well, time. I'm just kidding. My timeline has not been completely erased. No. But yeah, that's what I thought about. I said that I would be married by 27, 28, and then have kids by 29. Because I didn't want to put it to 30, but now I would say like 30 is fine. Like, I'm not pressed. But again, it goes back to the whole thought of I have time. Like, I'm not behind. Although in the South,
Behind.
people will be thinking you're behind just because people in the South get married super young, right out of high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. Definitely depends where you grow up and where
Mm-hmm.
you live. That's so true. So, I mean, now that you're 25, your brain is fully developed. I feel like you
That prefrontal cortex
and
is
we hope it's fully
good to go.
developed. So you like hopefully you're making rational decisions. So now looking back, do you feel like there are some big lessons that you have learned about dating and like relationships, or like things that you have decided like actually this is kind of a rule for me now going forward?
Oh, there's a few. There's a few. I'll start with being able to say I had a type was like a really hard thing to say for me.
Before?
Yeah, before. Because people would always say, "Oh, Jordyn, you have a type." And I'm like, I don't necessarily have a type. Because I would think like they're talking about physical type. And I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
necessarily have a physical type.
Mhm.
But personality type, if you put a bunch of guys in a room, there's
Hmm.
a specific personality that I just instantly gravitate towards.
Interesting.
Just because I think that my personality meshes with that type of personality very easily, which is like a person who's like the loudest person in the room, very like energetic.
Mm.
They are charismatic and friendly and welcoming, and people feel welcomed and they feel like they've known that person for forever.
Mhm.
And that personality is the one that I typically gravitate towards. But I think that's a personality that a lot of women gravitate towards,
Mm.
at least from my perspective.
Mhm.
So that guy tends to be like a ladies' man.
Oh, interesting.
You know?
Interesting.
So I had to reel myself back and say, okay, like, yes, that's the personality type that I typically would go for and gravitate towards naturally, but that doesn't mean that I'm not open to other types of personalities and that
Mhm.
I won't mesh well with those types of personalities. It's like going to a bakery and like I know for a fact that I love red velvet cheesecake or just red velvet cake in general. Anything red
Mhm.
velvet, I'm going to have it. That's like my go-to cake. But I know that if I try something else, there may be another cake in there that
Mm.
may taste a lot better to me. That may be even better than what I'm used to, which is the red velvet cake.
Yeah.
But because I know red velvet and I've experienced red velvet a cajillion times, I will go for that because I know that's what works for me. But sometimes I taste the red velvet and it's not even exactly what I want or expected
Mm.
it to taste like.
Okay, analogy.
So I'm open to vanilla birthday cake. I'm open to coconut cream because they may be better for me than the red velvet that I typically go for.
Yeah. So being open to trying new things. But it's also scary, right? Because it's like you could, I mean, if we're just sticking to the cake analogy, like you're buying this cake and then you don't like it, but it's like I already paid for it
I already paid
and
for
it's
it.
not what
Can't
I
return
wanted.
it. I already took a
Yeah.
bite. It's already damaged. It's damaged goods. Just
So
kidding.
there's a risk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a risk. So it could be a waste of money and resources,
Mhm.
or I could, try something that I don't typically go for
Mhm.
and see how it works out. And a lot of times it works out.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good analogy. It's like high risk kind of, but also high reward. So
Mm-hmm.
just being more open. I think one thing that I feel like I've learned is I don't know, just this idea of compatibility. I feel like going into relationships, you're like, oh, if I meet someone, I'm compatible with them, like we like vibe, then like this will work out in the
Yeah.
sense that it will like turn into a relationship. But I think I've learned that that's not always the case and like that's okay. Just because someone like you get along with really well, you have good
Mm-hmm.
conversations with them, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're someone that you should date.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
Yeah.
and I mean, maybe that's like just understanding friendships better, like understanding platonic friendships with people that aren't the same sex as you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just like being more open to, I know that we're talking about dating, but like being more open to like things just like turning into a friendship instead. And like that being okay too. Cause it's not everyone that you're compatible with that you're supposed to be with.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't think that way before.
Yeah. Because I had to really reframe my mindset in knowing that maybe I'm just getting along with this person because, like you said, we just vibe off of each other very well.
Yeah.
Our humor may be similar. The way that we think may be similar. Like, I just think he has a very inviting personality, and I get along, a lot easier with people who are just open and energetic.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I gravitate towards in a room of people that I don't know. Like, it's easy to talk to the person that's friendly, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that person is, the person that I'm supposed to date.
Yeah.
Yeah, being able to discern that can be a bit tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that discernment piece, right? Because it's like, it'll end up being something that you force, that you didn't need to force.
Mhm.
Like, if it's like, oh no, this makes sense, like this can work, and you're forcing it, and eventually like it won't work because it just was never supposed to.
Mhm.
Yeah. What other lessons do you have?
Fantasizing.
Oh, we're going there.
Yeah, we're going there. I didn't really think about it like too deep until this year, honestly.
Yeah.
And I see how damaging it can really be.
Yeah.
For your reality.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
First of all, you don't even have to like close your eyes and dream to fantasize. You can be on social media and like thinking about, oh, this couple is doing this, like my man better do this, he better be like this. But are we setting realistic expectations first and foremost with relationships? I think sometimes social media can really hinder our realistic expectations when it comes to relationships, because we're seeing what people's best always is, and that's what they're going to post to share. And then I also think about even just having to take any of your thoughts captive, even when you're just daydreaming and thinking about a guy you may like and like what that future may look like. You've already picked out your house and your bed linen sheets. Like, slow down. Like, do you even know his middle name yet? But it's so easy to do that. It's just so easy to like get into thinking about what the future could possibly look like with this person that you barely know.
Oh my gosh.
It's almost like a safe space we use to help us to like process, oh, I have a crush. What do I do with it? I'm going to like make this person what I want them to be.
Yeah.
And then we're sadly mistaken a lot of the time.
Oh my gosh.
Because we didn't take the time to actually get to know the person before creating a version of them that fits our mold. Yeah. I think that's a huge danger in fantasizing.
Yes. Yes. I agree like 10,000%. And I think I also didn't know this was a thing. Like, I didn't know the term for it until probably last year. I listened to this podcast. The episode was called Crucify Your Fantasies, and it woke me up so quick. I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that this is what I was doing. Even though it was like a serious issue that I had, I didn't realize that was what I was doing, and I didn't realize how destructive it could be. And like, it's still something that I have to be very mentally aware of. Like, it's so easy. And I think, I don't like generalizing, but I feel like this is something a lot of women do. I can't speak for men, but I feel like this is something a lot of women do. It's just easy to just meet someone, even someone you're dating, like you can fantasize about them and be like 20 steps ahead of where you guys are currently. And the issue is, like you were saying, you're just painting your ideal person in your head, but like, this is a whole human being who has their own brain. They like function in their own way. They're never going to match your fantasies exactly. Like, it's just impossible. And so you're going to be disappointed. And it's like, also, I don't know, in some ways it's like you're falling in love with this person that doesn't exist. Like, you're falling in love with the person you made up in your head.
You know how many guys I've fallen in love with in my head that I've made up? It's like they don't actually exist. Yeah. That's the danger.
That's
it's like,
so
and
scary.
you could become heartbroken because of a figurine of someone. Yeah. Who you have curated and taken the time to create in your head. Intentionally. This is not accidentally, oh, I accidentally thought about him. That's one thing. Yeah. But to sit there and like ruminate. Yeah. That I think is a problem.
And it doesn't, and I don't even think it starts intentionally. It's just like, oh, they're on your mind, you know?
Yeah.
But then before you know it, you're like daydreaming and you're just like getting carried away in your thoughts. Yeah. And yeah, I just think it's so dangerous. I've even seen it like in some ways it can be like a coping mechanism. Oh, yeah. Just the way daydreaming is just like distracting yourself.
It's a safe space.
Yeah.
I'll go back to that. It's a safe space. It protects you from feeling any sort of rejection if that's imminent.
Yeah.
in the vicinity, if you feel that there is. It's like, oh, there's a threat. Like, I potentially, at least for me, I was like, I don't want to be rejected. Like,
Yeah.
I do not want to put myself in that situation.
Yeah. So instead, let me
just think about it and think about the best circumstances, because I ain't rejecting myself up here, not in my head.
No. And I'm literally preaching to myself because, like I said, it's just so easy to do. And you don't realize like how like dangerous it is because it seems so innocent. It's like, oh, but I'm just thinking about this person.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it leads to so many things. Yeah, I would list that as like a regret too. Because we're saying like we're talking about it in the context of a crush, but I think even in the context of a relationship, like at any stage of where you are, you can always be thinking forward.
Oh, yeah.
In your brain. Yeah.
I'll say this. It's not unhealthy to be thinking about the future.
Yeah.
It's just when you're thinking in fantasy about the future is unreal. Like, it's not realistic based off of the circumstances, based off of what the person has said to you about what they want in their future. Like, are you creating something that is not even possible with the person that you're with? I think that comes into play when you're like actually dating this person.
Or it's like, even if the things you're thinking about are realistic, it's just like not where you are. Like, I think that's one of the ways that I am like trying to combat it is just like be present to where you are now. Like, stay in the present, stay in the here and now, and don't be like 2 months ahead, 3 months ahead, 3 years ahead. Like, just stay here.
Yeah, that's
and like, what are things like now? How well does he know you now? And not venturing in too deep into the unknown.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a part of it. It's like, I don't know, I just feel like as humans, we like control. And this is like a thing that's out of your control, right? Your relationships.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, but I can control everything in my head. And like in my head, this is how things would work out perfectly. And that's the other thing. It's like the way we want things to work out perfectly may not even be the best way for us to like experience things. There are other things that are better, but we would just never know because we can't come up with it ourselves, you know? I think another one, well, you actually brought this up, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on it now. But just this idea of like making dating casual, which I think is, I don't know exactly how I feel about it because I don't think I'm a casual person is the issue.
Yeah.
But, and like the sense of making dating casual, meaning just being open to get to know people and not, putting so much pressure on it.
So I think about it like this. I think about it like, make dating intentional. Like, I'm not just out here dating willy-nilly just because I want someone for 2 months and then I'm going to throw them to the dust and, whatever. When I think about dating casually, I just go date whoever. I'm not really thinking too deep about, is this person actually a good fit for me?
Yeah.
Are they fit for the goal that I have in mind?
They're just like a distraction or something to fill your time.
Yeah, they fill my time, basically. But I think about dating intentionally, like I have a purpose in why I'm dating. Like there's a purpose in why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I'm also having fun with it. Like, I'm not making it so serious from the jump because I want to give a space to be able to get to know each other.
Yeah.
And to learn about one another, because likely we'll be new to each other in some way, shape, or form, or learning new things about one another, or getting a different perspective of each other, even if we've been friends. So I think about dating as being an intentional act, but you can still have fun with it and not make it so serious from the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so serious in the sense of like, what? It's like the first date and I like need to know everything about you to decide yes or no.
Yeah. First date, you do not need to know his credit score. You need to know certain things to be able to, like, first date, I want to know about your faith. I want to know about where you're at with your faith, because that's important to me.
Yeah.
I want to know, not super detailed. Like, you don't need to tell me all your family drama, but I really want to know, like, how are you with your family? Like, do you talk to them often?
Interesting.
I don't know. That comes up because I think I just naturally talk about like my family. So it just comes up. I want to know, tell me what you're passionate about. Like, I want to know those types of things. So that gives me an idea of like where you're headed in some way. Those are the things I would say are important on the first date. They can be fun topics if you make them fun. You don't have to be like, so tell me all your family secrets. Do you have a good relationship with your mother, and why or why not? Like, it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. I think releasing the pressure just makes it a more enjoyable experience and like ties back to what I was saying before about compatibility. It makes it easier, like if you don't think it's going to work out, to just stay friends.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes it so much easier because it was like, oh, we were just getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a pressure thing on like, this is what I expect the outcome to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm learning that and learning it's okay. Like it's not that deep, you know?
See, I struggle with that when it's an online dating situation
Interesting. Say
because
more.
people go on dates from online dating not to meet friends.
Right.
You go dating, you go use online dating sites to like find someone to date.
That's true.
So it's just like in a context of, oh, I've known this guy for a while. Like, we're going to go out on a date. We're going to see where things are at. Well, we already had the foundation of friendship to begin with. So it's not going to be hard to say, oh, it's not going to work out.
I
Like,
see.
I want to keep a relationship platonic.
Yeah.
We can easily go back to that versus I just met you.
A stranger.
And I'm telling you that I don't see this going further. I would like to be platonic. I would like for us to have a friendship. And it's like, it may be a little bit more challenging, I think, depending on how receptive each person is to that comment.
I feel like if it's like a total stranger, like you may not even want to be friends. Like,
I know, but
it may just be cut
like
ties.
say like you're like, oh, like he's a great guy, but I just don't think that we're compatible for a romantic relationship.
Yeah,
I think there's a possibility. There's a possibility of having a conversation like that and it going swimmingly, and you guys are able to maintain a platonic relationship. But then I can also see it easily being like, all right, on to the next one.
Yeah,
I can easily see that.
So you feel like you can't do the casual thing with online dating? Is that what you're saying? Or it's just like you're going in with the expectation that...
I mean, the expectation is I'm going on a date to meet with someone that I have found interest in on a dating site, and we're going to see where it goes. That's my stance. I'm open to friendship. I'm open to not friendship because I'm not assuming that every single date I'm going to go on is going to result in a romantic relationship. I would say I go in with the mindset of, let's see if this is something, if something's there. If there isn't anything there to grow on, then I can just tell him if I want a friendship with this person, or if I see a friendship possibly in the future with this person, I will say, I don't think that we're right for each other for dating, but I would love to continue to be friends with you and create an environment where like you should come to this group event. You know, it makes it a lot easier. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, I don't know. Yeah, it is true. It's kind of different with online dating because it's like your expectations are made known, like in your profile. Like, what are you looking for? And it's clear, like, what we're both ultimately looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you're saying, like, it's okay. And I feel like we've talked about this too. I hope this is commonly accepted. I hope this is not a hot take, but I feel like if you are online dating, which, you know, it's a whole beast of its own, and like, I don't think it's for everyone. That is for sure. And I don't even think it's for anyone all the time. But not talking to someone for an extended period of time before you actually meet them, because I feel like that is just a recipe for disaster.
I agree.
That is a recipe.
That plays into fantasy. 100%.
A fantasy is one, and then two is just, in some ways, the way people are online, it's just not the same. You miss a lot.
Like, some people are way better texters than talkers. Like, you can crack the best jokes over text, but you're dry. You are dry in person.
Yikes.
So it's like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I say when you match with someone within a week, you need to be meeting up. Like, I'm not trying to waste any time here. Okay, the reason I say this is because this happened to me in a way. So when I first moved to Boston, I had matched with this guy on Hinge. And I was pretty excited about it. Like, I thought it was cute. Yeah. You know, whatever. And we make plans to meet up, but we had to push the date out a couple of weeks because I was out of town or something, super busy or something. Mm-hmm. And so we pushed the date out a couple of weeks. And I told my roommate, yeah, we pushed the date out to X date. she was like, Jordyn, like, that's a while out. Like, I hope it happens. Basically insinuating, like, I hope it happens. Well, it didn't happen.
Oh.
Because apparently he had, like, started a more serious relationship with someone else.
Oh.
Within the span of 2 weeks.
Oh, but you just didn't hear anything.
No, but he told me. He kindly told me. Like, maybe a couple days before the date was scheduled.
Oh, wow. And this whole time you were like, oh, this is coming up. Like, this is going to happen.
Yeah, but I was kind of like, I don't know if this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's so far out. And I knew that. That was a risk, obviously, in saying, like, let's schedule the day a couple weeks out. Like, yeah. So that's why I say make it quick and don't, like, leave it out to dry.
Yeah.
You know, for too long.
I've heard so many bad stories based on that, like just waiting a little bit too long or just because of the circumstances. Some people do FaceTime, which I feel like that is like a good in between. At least you just like are talking to them and see their personality more versus just like completely text.
Yeah, make sure you're not talking to a robot.
Not a robot. Or a catfish, bro.
Yeah, I know. I think online dating can be a bit judgmental. Like, you make all these preconceived notions about someone based off of what their resume is, their dating resume, and essentially like what they put out there for you to judge. That's why I think, like, if you're gonna be online dating, like, do it prayerfully. Like, literally.
It's just, I think, you have to do it in moderation and just like know yourself.
Yeah. I would say do not look to online dating to appease or validate you. Yeah. If that is your motivation for being on the app, get off the app. Yeah. Because you got a lot of self-work to do, if that's the case. Yeah. Like, what are you feeding when you're on the app? Are you genuinely like, okay, I think I'm ready to meet someone? Because you're going to be faced with disappointment. Like, not everyone you swipe right on is going to swipe right on you. Yeah. And so you have to be confident enough in yourself to know that let go, let God, let's see what happens with this. Yeah. You're not looking for it to say, like, oh, I'm just going on the app because I want to feel desired. Like, if that's the motivation, that's the wrong motivation to be on the app.
It's very fickle.
Yeah.
And I think you bring up a great point, which is just like with dating in general, I feel like it requires a lot of mental energy and mental space. And so I think you do want to make sure like you are in the right headspace before like embarking on that or entertaining that. Yeah. I don't even know exactly how to explain it, but it's just like when you're like talking to someone, when you're getting to know someone, they are just now taking up part of your mental energy. Mm-hmm. And because it's still new and like your brain is having its own mental party. And like if you don't have the time, if you don't have the emotional capacity to put yourself out there, like it's totally okay to like realize that and be like, I just need a break from that, or I'm just going to focus on myself. And I think that is super valid because when you are ready, you'll just be in a much better space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess like for me, I'm not against online dating. It's just a matter of, like you're saying, where's my headspace at? And am I in a headspace to be able to receive what I'm going on there, which should be for the right reason.
Yeah. Okay. Another one I have is, I mean, I think we just have to touch on it. Just long distance. I feel like a lot of people have like preconceived notions about it. Mm-hmm. And I definitely did. And I think now my perspective is not what I would have thought originally. Like, I think at some point we're all like, I would never do long distance. Like, I would never do it. And now I don't think it's impossible. Obviously, people do it. Yeah. And it works. I don't think it's impossible. I think what I've learned is that, like, you just both have to be committed to it. Yeah. And it's not going to be easy, just like anything. But, like, it's definitely doable. And, like, sometimes it can be really rewarding. But, yeah. So I wouldn't, like, totally write it off and like be completely closed off to it, but I also would be like pretty cautious about it because I think there's a lot of factors that influence that being successful.
And I think it's challenging too, depending on what stage in the relationship you're at. But if you're ever in a long distance relationship, there should definitely be a plan, like a cemented date when you're like actively trying to be in the same place. I do think people do long distance and they sustain it for years and years and years. I just think it's
years and years. I didn't say all that.
But they do. They sustain it for years and years and years. Just think about people who serve in the military.
That's different. Yeah, I'm talking
But that's
about
long distance.
But I'm talking about dating, okay?
Okay, dating.
I
Okay.
think if you are married and in that situation,
yeah,
it's
that's
just
different.
Yeah.
You've created like a literal commitment to this person by the law. But I also think that with dating relationships, it's possible to date long distance for years and years and years. Do I advise that? Absolutely not. I don't advise it. But I do think long distance relationships you can sustain them. But there has to be effort, like you said, on both parties.
Yeah.
To actually contribute to the vitality of this relationship.
Yeah. And I think also stage of life plays a role too. Like, I think that's something that we may not really consider, like, based on the age you are, the situation in life that you're in, like what you're doing, it can make it harder or easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to think about when it comes to that, but I think it's not impossible, but like you said, there needs to be an end date. That is so true.
Yeah. I think it's just, are both people committed to seeing this through? Like, do you love and care about that person enough to want to continue a relationship, basically adding on this hindrance block that could potentially
it's a sacrifice for sure.
Destroy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Not destroy it. Okay, but you started talking about some hot takes, so let's get into that.
Okay.
Hot takes and unpopular opinions. I feel like you have a lot, so I'm kind of afraid. I'll start out light. Okay.
Oh, mine are all heavy. So I'm glad
let's work our way up.
You're starting.
Let's work our way up in spice level. Okay. Basically, I feel like there's this idea. Usually, I feel like we get these ideas from like movies and like media and TV and stuff like that. I don't even necessarily know if this comes from that, but there's just this idea that like if you're dating someone, you're going to be spending all of your time with them. Like you're always going to be around them.
But some people are. That's a reality for some people.
No, I'm not saying it's not real, but I just don't know where it came from. Or maybe it just is because in practice. And I think it probably has to do with, okay, you were a science major, so you could explain this. But it probably has to do with your brain chemicals and, you know, the dopamine.
Oxytocin is bonding. But yeah, actually.
When you first meet someone and like, you know, getting to know them and like that type of love, you know how there's different types of love. There's like the agape love, which is like on the
and eros, which is like
the passion or whatever. Yeah. I think that probably has to play into it. But I feel like there's this like expectation too from like not even the person you're in a relationship with, but like people around you that's like, oh, if that's someone you're dating, like you're always gonna be around them. Which is probably why some people are so opposed to long distance, because they're like, oh my gosh, I don't have access to you like every hour of the day. And so I guess like, no, I don't think that has to be the case. I think you can still have healthy relationships where they are not the only person that you see or spend time with. And I think in some ways like that is healthy for you as well, because I think especially when you're just dating them or just like getting to know them, like you still have your own life to sustain. You have your own relationships that you want to sustain as well. And yeah, just to be like a complete person. Like, yes, they are an important person in your life and you're going to like prioritize spending time with them and like building them into your life, but they don't have to consume your whole life. And I think along with that is just like this idea of emotional boundaries. I feel like we always talk about physical boundaries, or that comes up more frequently as something to like think about. But even just the idea of like guarding your heart, I think, like you were saying, there's no reason why like I met you a month ago and like you know all my deepest darkest secrets. Like I don't think I just don't think that's wise, especially because, at least for me, maybe I'll say I'm just speaking for myself. Maybe I am just a little bit more reserved and like guarded when I'm getting to know people. But it's because like I do not know you really. Like I don't really know you in that way. And I also don't know how long you will be in my life. I'm thinking about like how much of me do I want you walking away with? Maybe And so that doesn't mean like you don't eventually open up. I think like with time, like that builds trust in all of those things. But I just don't think it's wise. Yeah, and I think it also like creates some sort of an attachment to someone when they like know so much about you so soon, especially when it comes to like emotional things. So yeah, my hot take is just like maybe it's just an unpopular opinion of just like being slower with certain things and like to share certain things. Being honest, not like lying to them, but if it's also like, hey, that's just not something I'm ready to talk about right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And I think there is are you willing to share that information, or is it something that makes you uncomfortable to share? Because I'm definitely like I can be a person that just like vomits like information about myself. not really thinking that it's, if I share it, then I don't consider it something that you can't tell, like, unless I say that to someone, like, please don't go blabbering this all over town. But if I do share something with you, I think it's because I have already built a level of trust that I can tell, like, okay, this person's trustworthy just based off of that. And I will say, like, sometimes it does take a month, but sometimes it depends on the person. Some people you have to like really gauge, are you a person that I know, like, if I tell you something, you will not go share that with your mom?
Why your mom?
Because some people are like, I won't tell anyone except my mother.
But I'm not even talking about like secrets as in like you can't say. I mean, one, why are you telling other people? But it's just being vulnerable. I think in general, like being vulnerable, like there's a risk to that. And if you share information with people, it's like, okay, it's like I'm handing you a glass object, right? And if I don't trust that you can like handle that with care, if I don't trust that you can like, you'll just trip, you'll turn around, trip, fall, and like it'll shatter, that can be really painful. So absolutely, I think like waiting before you like entrust that information.
Yeah, like essentially like waiting until you have established trust with this person.
Yeah.
Like until you feel comfortable.
Yeah. And maybe for some people that is like after a month, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Because I can definitely attest that I have been able to share details with people pretty quickly, whether they are platonic or non-platonic. But that's also like a level of trust I've established. I like can discern.
Right.
Spiritually.
back to discernment.
No, yeah. It is wise to be slower to share those intimate details with people. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's a lighter one. People always say, don't date potential. But I don't necessarily agree with that statement.
Oh, okay.
The reason being is that I feel like you're always going to be a version of potential. Like, I'm not at my peak right now.
Right.
Like, I have aspirations and dreams that I hope to achieve and accomplish.
Yeah.
But just because I'm not living in that right now, does that mean that I'm not dateable because of that?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think my understanding of when people say that is like maybe it's like proven potential is a different thing versus just potential, right? Like
but that's my point. That's my point. Is that potential has to be proven. Yeah. There has to be like actions that have shown that this is a possibility of it happening.
Yeah.
For this person, with this person.
Yeah.
Because of their history.
Or their character.
And their character, yeah. There is no potential for someone that does not show actions that can reach that potential.
Okay, so like, yeah, like they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
They're walking
even
the
if
walk.
They're not, at their peak goals yet.
Yeah, like I'm not, if homie comes to me and says, I'm going to run in the Boston Marathon in 2 months.
Yeah.
But he has done nothing to train for it.
Yeah.
Within the week that I've been knowing him, and you have to run this marathon in 2 months.
Yeah.
You don't have potential.
Well, first I would say that he's delusional because like people train for that for like a year. But anyways,
yeah. And they don't even qualify until like a year prior. But like hypothetically,
yeah.
I'm like, you can't say that to me and say, oh yeah, he has potential. Like, no, he doesn't. He didn't even train. Like he didn't adequately prepare himself.
Yeah,
that's not potential.
And I think it's interesting how you are also posing it for yourself too, right? You're like, I don't want someone to look at me and be like, oh, I'm going to write her off completely.
Yeah.
Because you have goals and you're working towards them, right? Like you're going back to school to like work towards these goals and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think I can agree with that.
So you do date potential, but like you date proven potential.
Yeah. Yeah. You look at the past and that helps inform the future for sure. But I think also maybe like tangentially, my other unpopular opinion, just this idea of settling, like at any age, you shouldn't be settling. And so like maybe sometimes when people think about like dating potential, they're like, oh, you're just settling. But like we just talked through that idea of proven potential. But I think just like with settling in general, I feel like you have to have your non-negotiables. Mm-hmm. You have to have your like the things that you will not compromise on. And this is in the sense of like, I'm not talking about material things, okay? I'm talking about like character, qualities, values that are a must have. And that's something actually I did a while back. I don't know who told me about this, but just making a list of like your must haves and your can't stands. And there may only be like 3 must haves and like 1 can't stand. But it's like knowing that every person you meet, you're going to test them against this list, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later. And so these are the most important things, right? Because I feel like if you don't have any baseline, if you don't have any vision or any, like expectations for yourself, you will meet someone and it's like, oh, well, they're not exactly this, but like they are this. So maybe I'll just like keep dating them and see how it goes, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think it's just so important to just have some clarity before you pursue something. And I feel like we settle because we think like, oh, this is the best or this is as good as it's going to get.
It's a scarcity mindset.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, well, of all the options available to me, this seems like the best option. So like, you know, I'm not settling, but it's like actually you don't know all the options available to you is not just what's in front of you, right?
Yeah,
like you don't know where you'll be next year or like you don't know what environment you'll find yourself in. And I mean, I think along with not settling comes with just like having to be content with yourself and like being single and like being by yourself, whatever. We have a whole episode about that.
So go listen, guys. I think this goes along with something that I was thinking about, which was that it's about managing expectations as well. Because sometimes our expectations are not even, it gets back to realistic. It goes back to this. What I think is such wise advice for people when they are dating is, are you the person that you are asking God to provide to you? Like, if I'm saying to God, like, because I've said it before, okay? Lord, give me a man that can cook. I parade the prayer humbly, pleading before the Father. I'm like, please give me a man that can cook, because like the time I didn't like cooking. I was like, cooking's a waste of time. I could easily just order this and it'd be there like 30 minutes later. And I could be doing something else in that 30 minutes, being productive. But then I was convicted about that, because why am I asking for a skill that I possess? I can cook. I just choose not to do it because I don't want to. You know how many things in life I don't want to do, but I have to do it?
Yeah.
So I think is what is on our list. Are we willing to be those things too?
And I think this is not like, what I'm talking about is not like your wish list, you know, or like a list of like what you want in a person, you know, like that can be long and as fickle as you want it to be, because those are just preferences or maybe just ideas or desires. It may not be what's best for you anyways. Yeah. So like, yeah, on my must-have list, cooking is not on there, right? Because it's not like do or die.
Same. Yeah.
You know,
of course. I'm just saying it was on there in there. It was within the list. And I was like, that'd be great. It's not actually like written on my list. I have like character traits more than anything.
Yeah.
But hypothetically in my mind, I always joke.
Yeah.
Please give me a man that can cook. Like, that'd be nice.
No.
Built-in chef.
But yeah, no, that's a good point. It's like also, you know, with these expectations that you have.
But then with your non-negotiables, like, do you possess those traits? Like one of my non-negotiables is a guy that's patient, a guy that's kind. Like those types of character traits need to be evident.
Yeah.
But am I those things?
Yeah. And it's also like a benchmark for you to be working towards. It's like, okay.
Absolutely. I'm a work in progress like every person.
Yeah.
But is what I'm asking, do I possess those qualities?
Yeah.
Because just as much as I need him to be patient with me, I need to exhibit that to him.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. What else do you got?
So dating can be a breeding ground for temptation.
Okay. Is that a hot take or is that just the truth?
It's just the truth. But I also think it's a hot take.
Okay, say more.
Because, I mean, not everyone dates the same way, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to date in a, like, holy way, as best as you possibly can, I think there are instances where you can facilitate an environment where it becomes a breeding ground. So I said can be. I used to say dating is a breeding ground for temptation.
You did used to say that.
But I've changed it to being dating can be, because it is up to you to monitor your environment and to put up boundaries in which you do not consistently fall into temptation. It's not easy. I'm not going to say easy. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think that at times you're setting yourself up to fall into this temptation.
Yeah. I agree. Truly, you need the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prayer.
Jesus be offense.
That's what you need, because I don't even.
Honestly, yeah. But I do think that you should be intentional about your environment.
Yeah.
When dating.
Yeah. And I will say, like, on that point, the way to make your own life easier from the jump. My friends always laugh when I say this, but I'm like, when you meet him, there's only one question you need to ask. But is he a part of the kingdom? Yes or no? Are you part of the kingdom? And he'll know how to answer if he is, okay? If he's not.
Yes, sir. I'm a part of the kingdom. Yes, sir.
And I'm just saying that to say, like, this is for Christians. You know, like, what your values are and what your boundaries are when it comes to dating.
Well, maybe you don't.
Maybe you don't.
Maybe you don't.
That's a good point. Maybe, and then in that case, I can't help you. But when you know what they are, somewhat to some extent, you are only making your own life harder by like entertaining a relationship with someone who does not have those same boundaries or values. Because at the end of the day, someone's going to have to compromise. And I think it is way harder for the person without the Holy Spirit to compromise than the person with the Holy Spirit. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is just like so important, because it just seems like such a slippery slope. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's about also being honest with yourself. Like, you know what tips you over the edge, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what pushes you towards the line. And it's not about getting as close to the line as possible. It's about not how far I can stay away from the line, but
or how well can we honor God with this relationship? Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Like, you can still have the Holy Spirit and fall into temptation.
Right.
Easily.
Yeah.
But it's also about keeping your guardrails up and being able to say, okay, this is the action that I know will tempt me to go further.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot do that.
Yeah.
And being able to honor each other in what that is. Because maybe realistically, two people could come into the relationship with two different types of boundaries.
Okay.
Like, one person could be like, kissing is as far as I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else could be like, hand holding is as far as I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't convince the person that's hand holding is as far as they'll go to try to get up to where your line is.
Try to lower their boundaries.
Yeah. Like, that's where they're at. So you need to meet them where they're at.
Yeah. If you're willing to be in that relationship.
If you're willing to be in that type of relationship.
Yeah. I love the word you used about like honoring the other person, because I think that's really what it comes down to. Like, assuming that you are both Christian and like that is the way you want to date. It's like, I want to honor God with this relationship, but I also want to honor you, because like, and hopefully this isn't like a negative way to look at it, but the reality is it's not 100% chance that this is going to be your person forever. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you knowing that like this actually like it may come to an end, at least I know that like I honored you as a person, and like I didn't make this something to where like now that we're not together anymore, it's like an awkward thing that I feel like guilty about. Obviously, like there's totally grace, because like you said, it is super, super difficult, but it's like a sacrifice that you're making. And it's also just helping you. It helps you to not put this relationship on the throne of your life, because at the end of the day, like you want God to be at the throne of your life. And so if there is something that is making you compromise your beliefs and your values, it shows you like what your priorities are, right? So if it's like, if God is at the throne of my life, then that means that everything else has to fall under that. So even though this is something that I like want to do, this is something that feels good, this is something I desire, I'm going to surrender that, because I don't want that to be my God, basically. Because it's gonna disappoint you at the end of the day. It's never going to fulfill you like you think it will. And it's always harder to set up higher boundaries than it is to start with higher boundaries, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or like once you do something, it's hard to be like, oh, actually, like let's like totally cancel that out.
Because once you get a taste of sugar, it's hard to go back to all veggies.
Yeah, it's much more difficult.
Yeah, it is.
My other question was if you have any regrets.
I guess, okay, yeah, I would say there are things that I wish I handled differently than I did, which was, this is a story from middle school. I think about it like ha ha ha, but I do understand the impact that this possibly had on the person, which was it was my first year at this new school. So I was a new girl basically. And I was in chorus, had the row of tenors in front of me. And I would always talk to this one particular guy, like a few of them actually, just as friends or whatever, just kikiing. One day, we're about to leave, the bell rings. My back is turned, I'm about to walk out of the door. And I hear someone like gassing this guy up, like, dude, just ask her, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And he goes, Jordyn, will you go out with me? And I look at him and I kind of like scan him and I go, no. And I just walked away.
Wow.
And first of all, it sounds funny, kind of, in a sense, like, oh, ha, ha, ha. That's like, why would you do that, Jordyn? Like, seriously? But I realize the impact that that possibly had on that person because years later, I run into him in high school.
Oh.
And
Meet cute.
Meet cute? No, not a meet cute.
Years later.
Years later in high school, walking in the hall. And I think someone says like, oh, you know Jordyn? And he's like, yeah, she rejected me.
Yikes.
Like that's the legacy I left behind with that man.
Yeah.
Is I rejected him.
Painfully.
Not even like how much fun we had kikiing, how many jokes, how many laughs we shared. We got along. We would sing together. Da da da. Yeah, she's the girl that rejected me. Which I like. Oh, that like still stings a little bit. We're cool now though, so it's,
This story, bro.
We're cool now. But what I've learned is that I had to be careful and cautious and handle with care rejection.
Yeah.
Because I myself, I'm not a fan of rejection. I'm not out here like, yes, reject me. Like I don't enjoy being rejected. And I should pay the same mind when I'm telling a guy, hey, I'm not interested in that way. The language that I use to convey that message is extremely important because it could leave someone in a place of, yeah, like I was rejected and it doesn't feel good. Cause like, obviously I walk away and like some people are kikiing and then some people are like, oh man, I'm sorry. Like you hear all these reactions when you're leaving the room. And I'm like, at the moment I was just like, why are you asking me out? We're in middle school. We can't even drive anywhere. Like we got to ask our parents for money. Like this is not a real date.
She was looking ahead. She was like, I'm trying to be a passenger princess.
So that's what I was thinking in my mind. Like, this is not a real thing. Like,
but people were dating in middle school.
I know, but I just didn't think it was like legit. Like, what are you talking about? I just didn't think it was like a legit thing. So
his hoodie.
I realized that although that was my mindset, obviously I'm older now, so I can think about it in a more critical way. My prefrontal cortex is fully developed, so I can think about this very critically. I'm like, if I could go back, I would have told Jordyn, like, I know you think dating is a joke for middle schoolers, but like some people take this seriously.
Yeah.
And some people will have a lasting impact from your words, even though you take it as like, this is ha ha ha. But it took courage to like ask me out and ask me out in front of everyone.
Front of his friends.
In front of his friends that were gassing him up to do it.
Yeah.
Like handle people with care.
Yeah. I actually love that because I feel like it still translates to today. And something that I think I also have as a regret and something that I've learned is I am like the first person to be like, I'm so anti-toxic masculinity. Like we need to stop it, all that stuff. But then you don't realize the ways that you unintentionally perpetuate it.
Mm-hmm.
And like one example is just, in the way you view guys and like their emotions, right? Like they are still human beings just like us. They still have complex emotions. Shout out to the guys listening to this podcast.
Shout out to you.
We
love you, all three of you.
But anyways, but yeah, like they have, like I sound even crazy saying this, right? Like they have emotions and they have feelings and all those things. But like, I don't know, in some ways, and maybe this is just based on how I was raised, but I just never really took their emotions into consideration. And I think now I can see like, no, they definitely do feel things deeply, just like you. And like, you know, your words have power. Like what you say has power. And so like whether that's with letting someone down or whether that's in your relationship, the way you talk to them when you have a disagreement or things like that. So I guess that is kind of a regret and like something that I've learned.
That's good.
So is there anything else on this topic that you wanted to touch on that you didn't get a chance to?
Oh, okay. There's this quote by Essence Atkins that I literally love so much. And I guess also it helped me because I was like really struggling with the thought of, is this ever going to happen for me? Is this going to be something that's in my future? Like I would say some things that are like not necessarily true, but I would just feed myself this because it helps when you're moping and yourself. You're like, no one's talking to me. No one's doing this. No one's doing that. But what she said was the right person is going to see me and I don't mind being ignored by everybody else. Like I about fell out my seat when she said it because I actually really love that because it's like, why am I looking for affirmation, all these people that I'm not even going to end up with? In the end, the only one that truly matters, like that I care to hear the opinion of, is the one that I actually do end up with. Like, who cares what Samuel over here in 2005 said to me on the playground, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like I would only care about what the person I'm dating is saying about me. Like I'm not out here looking for affirmation in other guys. And I'm not going to say I'm solely looking for affirmation in him because my affirmation does not solely come from him. It comes from God. But when I'm thinking about, does he think I'm beautiful? I'm not thinking about, does every guy in the room think I'm beautiful? I'm thinking, does he think I'm beautiful?
Yeah. I think that's a great quote.
Yeah, I really love it.
So how have things changed for you now that you are embracing a more unhurried life? You're more aware of always anticipating the future.
I'm like taking baby steps and like trying to be more present in my life. I've been taking a lot of steps to just understand and learn about myself in this time too, because I think when you're constantly worried about the future, you do not take the steps to understand who you are right now. I'm not against thinking about the future. Like I do enjoy thinking about the future and like imagining what that could be, but I'll say that there are things that I want to work on or the things I'm aware of that I need to work on. I am proud of myself as a person. It's just like, what else do I need to be working on to be better as a person? Those things I need to focus on and not be so concerned about what's going to happen in the future. It's like being more present with today.
Yeah.
Like what can I control today? So just being more present is how I'm kind of working on living a more unhurried life.
Yeah.
And knowing that I still have time, but not procrastinating on it. Trying to work on those things so that I can be the person that I envision myself being in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking like the small steps today to reach the big goals for the future. That just reminds me, it was maybe like a few months ago at this point, but basically I think I was struggling with being present. I was like starting to anticipate all the things coming later this year. And I feel like God was like, water the plants in your garden. It's like, okay, this is not like literal garden because I don't have a garden. What are you watering as in like mentally? Like what thoughts are you watering? Like, am I watering thoughts about my future 5 years from now? Because that doesn't make sense, right? I can't be watering a garden I don't have yet. Like, am I watering thoughts from the past? Am I watering like other people's gardens, like people I see on social media because I'm spending so much time looking at them and like what they're doing? How can I water the plants in my own garden? Like, what is in front of me right now? What do I have in my hands? What are the relationships I have? What are the goals I have? And when you start thinking about things that way, I'm like, I have so many things to be thinking about. That honestly really helps. You're cutting the idle time that you would be fantasizing or like thinking about your future or like this future relationship or whatever. Because it's like when that comes, you want to make sure your garden is like in order and like you've taken care of the things that you do have.
Right. And my goal is not perfection necessarily, right? I'm not anticipating I have to be this perfect person before I step into a relationship. I just want to be actively pursuing the version of myself that I hope to one day become. I want to be walking in healing. Like
Yeah.
Jesus said to the woman, go in peace and be healed. That's active. Go in peace and be healed. I want to actively be walking in healing every single day.
When it comes to relationships, sometimes it feels like so much is out of our control. Whether you're currently in a relationship, open to dating, or closed off completely, remember that you're not racing against time. Focus on watering the plants in your garden and leave the rest to God. I've listed everything we referenced during the episode in the description box. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on our conversation. You can reach me via Instagram at the Making Space Podcast, where you should also follow for more content. Please rate and follow the podcast if you haven't already, and share this with someone who would benefit from hearing our conversation. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode of Making Space. Bye!